Hey guys! So, let's talk about value producing activities at work. So, if you are working in an agile environment, which is this fancy term basically for a work process that is very, very popular in IT right now, you will have something called a stand-up. And a stand-up, for those of you who are not indoctrinated in the Scrum way of working or the agile methodologies, that is basically a very fancy way of saying that, hey, we all stand up, because we literally all stand up. It's the dumbest thing in the world, trust me. We all stand up and stand in a circle, and then we talk about the tasks that we have ahead of us, the things that we're going to do today, the things we did yesterday, and just basically it's a small briefing meeting that for some reason got a really fancy name. I suppose there was a PowerPoint person involved there, or a marketing person who wanted to rebrand, these type of meetings into something more fancy. Don't know. Anywho, so the thing is that the other day, my colleague, who basically we were talking about something called code reviews. And if you haven't talked about, or if you don't know what a code review is, it's basically, if I write some feature, I build something for the system that I'm working with, and my colleagues are, we're all working together, right? Then we usually have a little bit of a review. Like you push you save your code or push your commit into a repository of some sort. Usually something like GitHub, Bitbucket, or GitLab, GitLab is pretty good for companies. And then usually you basically just look at the difference. Like you look at the before and the after, and the changes that I'm going to make to the codebase, the addition that I'm making to the codebase, and then you form your opinion basically based on the code that I've written, so that you know that I'm not the only person who looked at the code before it was committed. Because the thing is that this actually helps a lot with code quality and knowledge sharing, where if I build something, it's very important that my colleagues know what I'm building. And and especially if you're a junior developer, this is really useful to you push your code, and then some of the more experienced programmers have a look at it and say, hey, you should tweak these things or change these things, or maybe they're even really nice, and they go, wow, cool, you actually made some really important changes to the code base and made a lot of good contributions, right? Which is great. And so in the stand-up, my colleague, who has been literally working for he's almost into 3 weeks, like he keeps, I love this guy. He's so naive. He refactored a major part of the application, and it's all in JavaScript. And for those of you who, I actually made a video about his plight, where I was talking about the scariest thing in programming, and I still maintain that the scariest thing in programming is to refactor a really large code base in a loosely typed language such as JavaScript. And that's exactly what he was doing. And he was very optimistic. He said, oh, I'm going to be able to do this in a week. And I said, nope, you're not. And he's like, well, why do you say that? And I said, because I've been doing this for long enough that I can tell you that a major refactor in JavaScript is not going to take a week. It's going to take a week maybe in theory, to do the work, and then it's going to be 2 or 3 weeks of regression and bug reports and problems and stuff that you have to fix because you broke stuff. That's usually what happens in a loosely typed language, but I'm not going to make this video about types, so let's move on. Anywho, he's standing in the stand-up, and I can tell that he's a little bit uncomfortable, because you can hear it in people's, the tone they use. Like, if they're very confident in, like, they're producing value, they usually have this, oh, yeah, I did this and this and this, and they become very pragmatic and, like, very structured. They just kind of chop off, like, they go point by point over what they've done, and that's basically it. But if there's a lot of, yeah, I did a little, like, if you hear a lot of uncertainty in the way that they talk, and this usually happens when they talk about things that are not pure code or story closing activities. Like, if they're doing stuff that is not the traditionally value building type of activities, such as, closing bugs or delivering on features and so forth. Because it's actually something that you may not know if you're not, if you haven't been working all that long in programming, but there's actually a hierarchy. Like in programming, there are these subtle little rules, like delivering a new feature, a big story, that's high profile, good. People are going to respect you for doing that. Solving a really, really tricky bug, you're going to get a little bit of office cred for that as well. And anything like code reviewing, going to meetings, or refactoring or stuff like that, that's generally like in the shame area. That's stuff that you kind of do a little bit by bit, and you don't really talk about it because it's not value producing. And the thing is, like, I could tell that he felt a little bit, troubled by, doing all this refactoring. And he also had like a lot of code reviews going in that day, so he didn't have any of those high value, or the perceived high value tasks to talk about. And I actually opened it up because we were talking about code reviews, and I was making the suggestion that we should take them more seriously. And basically my argument was that, you see, the thing is that we have as an organization decided that code reviews are important. That was not my colleague's decision, because he, like, this specific scenario, he had been in a situation where I had closed a lot of stuff, and he had to code review it because I can't finish my work until he code reviews it. So that puts him in a position where he has to pick between working on his stuff or helping me finish my stuff. And so the argument I made to my product manager was that, if we don't think that code reviews are equal in value to that of delivering or working on a feature, because the product manager was making the argument that, code reviews aren't as important. You shouldn't, stop your own work to do a code review. And my argument was that if you never stop your own work to do a code review, there's no use in having a code review, because we are all always working. Nobody's ever almost never in a situation where you have time to spare to like do a code review. You have to actually prioritize it. And I said, the thing is that if you're not making the code review, and you have told me as the product manager or the CTO or whatever that I have to have a code review on my code before I can commit it to the master branch, then you are putting a bottleneck in order to attain quality, which means that we can it's all value building activity. Like if my colleague prioritizes working on his story, that's for his basically providing value for him or her. And if that person is helping me with the code review, the story that I'm working on, it's going to get close. This value is still there. It's still being produced. It shouldn't matter if it's for my colleagues' sakes or if it's for my sake. So basically the argument I was making is that if we don't feel that code reviews or finishing a code review is as valuable as working on a feature, then we should drop code reviews altogether. And they did, like, my colleagues understood what I was saying. I think my product manager wasn't all that, wasn't feeling it all that much. And so I put it in terms that she could understand more readily, if you will, where I said that in theory, I can be completely finished with my feature, and then it can sit there for weeks. I can never deliver it because the code review needs to happen. And if the code review is a prerequisite for me to deliver something, then it is as valuable to do that code review as it is to work on your own stuff, because we are all working as a team. What does it matter if my colleague delivers 10 stories and I only deliver one story? It's all building towards the same thing. If I'm held back by a code review requirement and my colleagues are not helping me, they are doing so most likely because they want to be in that stand-up talking about the value that they have produced for the company. And that's a very selfish mindset. If I prioritize my own work and getting my stuff done as much as possible so that I can look good in the stand-up or in front of my my boss, then I'm not much of a team player now, am I? So by having this rule, the team or the company has said that we prioritize code reviews. Then we should do that, all the way. We shouldn't just say that this is the way that we want things to work, because if we are punishing people by making them feel that if they do a code review for, like, if basically they sit all day, one full day, and just do code reviews, if they feel that they go into that meeting, like that stand up, and they feel ashamed that, they feel that they didn't do real work, then we are the problem. Like, the entire organization is the problem, because it's value building. We shouldn't be spending our time doing stuff that's not value providing to the company. And so, in my mind, it's basically boils down to this: if a code review is not as valuable as writing code, then you should cut it from your entire workflow altogether, because people don't, like, you shouldn't put people in a situation where they have to do something that makes them feel like they look bad in front of their boss for doing their job.